Welcome to the Andrea K Wellness Podcast, where we are redefining what health means in womanhood, where we prioritize movement and mindset, where we let go of standard social norms that are holding us back, and we embrace everything it means to be in womanhood. So today I'm very excited. We have a very special guest, Megan Wordsworth. And for those of you that don't know, she actually worked at my Pilates studio, which is where I am today doing the interview. But she worked with me for a couple years as a Pilates teacher and has since moved to Tennessee. So we're going to be asking her all about her journey in Pilates, what the move has been like. She's been working on some very cool projects, including helping produce a movie that's going to be out this December, and just what life is like as a single woman. I know her personally, and I know her stance on a lot of things, and today is going to be a conversation that you don't want to miss. So welcome, Megan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking me to be part of this. It's so exciting.
Yes, yes, it is going to be good. So tell me a little bit, just to catch everybody up, for those of you that don't know you. So I met you when you had just moved to Charlotte and you started coming to my Pilates studio, and then I conned you into teaching very lovingly at my Pilates studio, and we loved you. And now you have moved on to Tennessee. So tell us a little bit first about what your full-time job is, what originally brought you to Charlotte, and what has taken you to Tennessee.
Yeah, of course. So I initially found my way into Charlotte via job. I got a job in publicity or public relations for a network, like a TV network that actually is headquartered in Charlotte or right outside of Charlotte. And I had a history of doing Pilates in Wilmington before I moved to Charlotte and just knew that I needed to find a home studio. And so I started doing all my research on studios and kind of hopping around the mall. And as you said, you kind of conned me into teaching, but it was definitely the best thing I ever could have done. Um, but within my time in Charlotte, I also was able to get another job working kind of closely with a family in the entertainment industry. And I had been thinking about Nashville, Tennessee for a few years, but never felt like the complete pull to make the official jump over to Nashville. And then one day, the family that I worked for decided that they wanted to move to Nashville without me ever even saying anything about it. And my lease was coming up in Charlotte, and so I thought, what better time than to try it now? I didn't want to live with any regrets or look back and be like, what if? So I made the move in April of 2024 and been here since then and starting that whole process over again of finding community, finding my spots. So still kind of very much new into that journey.
It definitely sounds, and I know a little bit of your personal story too, but it definitely sounds like all the stars just aligned when it came down to this move. And I feel like it was meant to be. We were so sad to see you go, but I definitely feel like it was meant to be that you ended up in Tennessee. So we're going to talk more about Tennessee and what you're doing now. But first, tell me a little bit about Pilates. How did you fall into Pilates in the first place?
So I actually, I guess, discovered Pilates by watching my mom. She would do the Mari Windsor DVDs. And I don't know, maybe even VHS tapes, possibly,
Probably. That's
way back
probably
in the
so.
day. And I remember her doing it after school and work and just being like, what are you doing as a child? But I also just really like was mesmerized by it in a weird way. Specifically the side lying series. It just looked so fun, and so I would join her on the floor
I
as
love
she would
that.
do it, and we would actually sometimes, not every time, but sometimes even like with my schoolwork, she would call out questions, and I would. That's how I would answer them for studying. So,
Oh, that's
so
perfect.
that's kind of how I got introduced to Pilates, and I never knew anything about, Pilates involving any type of apparatus or equipment until I was in college. And I went to college in Wilmington, North Carolina. specifically UNCW, and I was doing Zumba with a friend, and it happened to be next door to a Pilates studio that had all the apparatus. And I would just remember walking by thinking, I wish I was doing that instead of Zumba because it looks so fun. And then only like seeing bits and pieces of like reformer Pilates and the Cadillac with like celebrities and magazines or social media definitely was not very well advertised as it is today. So I looked that studio up online. It's In Balance Pilates Studio if anyone's interested. And they had a coupon for like buy one, get one mat class. And I was like, well, at least it gets me in the door. And so I did a mat class with an instructor there and fell in love. And it just kind of became my safe space while I was in college. And eventually, that lead instructor there too, Carrie Pages, kind of conned me into being um, a student in the teacher training program, kind of like you conned me into teaching. And again, it was the best thing I ever could have done. But that's kind of how I discovered Pilates and got into it.
And we love Carrie. We know Carrie and love Carrie. And I think, if I remember correctly, Carrie is how you found our studio in Fort Mill when you moved to Charlotte.
Yes, it is. You so graciously opened your studio. I think it was actually out of your garage at the time, after Hurricane Florence hit, and Carrie had
Yes.
to kind of leave because her studio flooded. Um, and I think she kind of found refuge closer to Charlotte, and you so graciously opened up your studio to her to still practice and kind of find space in her body while she wasn't in her home studio.
Yes, that was a very crazy time indeed. Because yes, we were. It was
Yeah.
actually I was in a garage. We were in between studio spaces. I was in a garage of a client of mine while we were in between studio spaces. And yes, her studio was flooding, and it was just a crazy time. But Pilates makes everybody feel better. So,
Yes, it's very
um,
healing.
yes, you can't skip your Pilates. So how has Pilates, speaking of that, how has Pilates been part of your wellness and health journey throughout your life? Like what do you feel that it gives you that like Zumba, for instance, wasn't giving you? No, I mean I love Zumba, don't get me wrong.
It's
Like
great. It's
Zumba's
fun.
great.
It's just different. It's a
Yeah.
different experience. Um, Pilates for me, I think, is maybe what yoga is to other people. It's that time where you can kind of zone out of being in your brain, and really kind of come in tune with your body and what your body is needing in that session, or within that movement specifically. I personally cannot tolerate yoga because my mind actually races more. It's too quiet, too still for me. I love it and still do it occasionally, but it's not my go-to. But Pilates, because I'm constantly having to make these connections, this finer tuned connections within my muscles and then the mind body connection, it forces my mind to kind of only be able to think about those connections. I can't be thinking about what I'm doing after the session. I can't be thinking like, oh, I hope she would move on to the next move. I'm just constantly in the move and I'm being forced to really think and be still. And so that is the biggest thing it gives me is just a peace of mind for however long the class is. It also has given me more awareness of my body. I had like a lot of health issues growing up and not being able to always know for certain if, diagnoses were correct or anything like that. But give having the experience within Pilates and the movement, I'm able to kind of tap into my body in ways that I never would have been able to beforehand, and kind of really listen to what it needs in the moment and be able to trust my instinct when it comes to my health as well. So those are the biggest two pieces that Pilates has given me, but it's also given me community. It's also just kind of been like a safe haven, so to speak, in literally every city I've lived in. It's always been the place that I go to and I just feel safest. Um, and I think that's really important in finding a Pilates studio if you're going to look for one or any workout space, or it's just that you find a place that you feel welcomed and that you feel safe. and that you can if you need to. For this is just a small example, but if you need to be like raise your hand during the class and like something's wrong, that you feel like you can do that. You can talk to your instructor. Um, I actually had an instance this past week when I was in a workout class and my toe got stuck in in a metal piece within the megaformer, and I had to yell out for help because I physically could not move.
Is your
So
toe okay?
it's okay.
Okay, good.
But you do get nervous doing things like that, especially if you're newer and you feel like the people next to you have been there forever and know exactly what they're doing. You don't want to raise attention. So making sure you feel safe in the environment you're in is also very important.
For sure. So have you found, that was actually a perfect lead into my next question. Have you found a home studio and what has it been like searching for the perfect home studio for Pilates or something similar since your move?
Well, I'm not gonna lie, it has been a lot more challenging than I initially thought. I think for me personally, having come from studios that just feel so welcoming and are so about, I guess, the focus on your overall well-being, to then moving to more of a trendy city, kind of like a New York or LA, where I feel like a lot of things are more for aesthetics. It's been really hard to kind of find that little safe haven that I mentioned earlier, where I feel safe and I don't feel like I am just one of the many faces in the crowd, and that also the instructors really care about teaching. Um, and aren't afraid to give modifications, aren't afraid to, even though it might not seem like the most beautiful move to teach, it might not, they teach what's safe for everyone. So that has been a struggle. I have not found a home studio, unfortunately, but I have kind of committed to giving each studio that I try longer amounts of time so I have more experience with a variety of teachers, a variety of classes they offer. Even if I go in the first class, I'm like, I don't think this is for me, I'm still trying to truly give it a shot, because all teachers are different, all classes are different. Um, so I've been trying to fully give it an opportunity before just automatically writing it off. But that being said, because I've been doing that, financially, I can't just bounce around studio to studio like I was when I first was trying out one class here, one class there. Um, but I guess it is giving me a well-rounded experience with each studio once I give it that full like month or full class package that I am investing in.
That's great advice for what to look for. And then the time piece is a very good piece of advice as well. Because I think sometimes we try a place and we make our decision instantly and then maybe don't give it the attention that it deserves. So that is really good advice. Well, we hope that you find your home studio soon. Now I believe you have a reformer yourself. So are you practicing at home some as well?
I do have a reformer at home. I know that's a luxury. Um, I do practice my reformer at home, majority of the time, but I also know that I love the community of what the Pilates community can bring me. So that is why I want to find a home studio. And also, if I do want to continue to teach in the future, I want to find a place that aligns with the way that I do want to teach, because there are some studios, that's been another piece of it too. There are some studios that I enjoy take personally for myself, but I don't feel like I would want to teach the way that they are teaching their clients, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to find that perfect balance, especially coming from a potential teaching perspective of, okay, is this studio somewhere that I personally love taking classes and also that I would want to teach at, in terms of how they program their classes, how they structure things, safety, how many reformers do they have, how many, people do they allow in a class, All those types of things I'm also looking at. And so I think that's made it a little bit harder in narrowing down because there might not be the perfect balance of it all, but that has also made it more challenging. So like in between going to different studios, I mainly am practicing at home and doing online workouts, and then also just moving my body how I feel like I need it to.
I love the clarity you have on what you're looking for in terms of for your own practice, but then also what you're willing to give on or not give on in terms of like sharing the gift of health and wellness through Pilates with other women. I love that you have a very clear vision on what that looks like and aren't willing to sacrifice on those things. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, it's hard going to certain classes and seeing, other students in the class, and you can just kind of tell that they're frustrated or they don't know if they're doing the move correctly, or they're like, I don't think it's supposed to feel like this, and like the teacher in me wants to tell them it's not, but it's also not my class, so I'm not going to do that. But I just want to make sure, like, I've experienced a lot of pain in my own body, and I just want to make sure that others can find ways of moving their body that they don't feel painful, or that they're having to force things that don't need to be forced, or, if that's not their appropriate level. Um, being told like, hey, let's do a modification, and not doing like 100 reps of the same thing, which I had that experience this past week. And I thought of you because listeners, when I was doing like apprenticeship stuff, I was the person doing a lot of reps. And I remember you kind of so graciously telling me, that's not how we do it here. And I'm so glad you did. But I kind of chuckled to myself because I did think about that this week. So I was like, I used to do that too. So I get it.
We all do. We all go through those journeys of growth. Well, I love that you have you know what works for you, and I love that you're trying a lot of different things, but you're not sacrificing on what's most important. Especially knowing you've shared a little bit with us here. I know a little bit of your story as well, where you've come from in terms of your health. I love that you found something that works for you, and thank you for sharing that with us. So to kind of switch gears a little bit, now you have this job, which from the outside looking in looks very stressful. And I don't know if that's true or not. So you'll have to tell us if it is stressful or not. But from my perspective, I'm like, how does she juggle all of this stuff and her schedule and their schedule? And then, like last month you were working to produce a movie. And I mean, it was just so hectic in all these parts. So knowing where you've come from with your health and how protective you are of your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. How do you juggle everything on your plate right now to make sure you have yourself, like your whole embodied woman, taken care of?
Oh, I think
First off, I guess first question, is it stressful? Is it as stressful as it looks? Because it looks stressful.
yes, it can be. It's like a hectic, stressful, but in a good way. Like I'm very grateful for my job. It was a huge blessing. One of the greatest things that I feel like the Lord truly led me to, which is a whole other story. But it's been a huge blessing. And so I'm always thinking of that because the job that I had before this was stressful in a bad way. And um, while I'm still grateful for that opportunity too, because I think each opportunity leads you to the next, um, I constantly am thinking, well, at least I'm not in this situation. So
Right.
within that, I am very grateful for the good hectic stress that I have as opposed to the other. That being said, I think it's been more challenging since I have moved because before, when I was in Charlotte, I kind of had a routine. My routine, I was running kind of on autopilot, You don't realize after you've lived in a city for so long that even the things like going to the grocery store or just going down the road to get gas, like your places, oh, this is the gas station that has the cheapest gas and the smallest lines. I'm going to go here, or this grocery store I can run to and be out in 15 minutes. But then when you add in the move to a whole new place, you're like, well, I don't know which grocery store I want to shop at when I don't know which gas stations are around. And so it just makes everything a little bit more complicated. It takes more time, more energy. You feel all turned around because you're like, I don't know where I'm going or what's around me. So that was definitely stressful moving because I was also juggling two other schedules and then whatever else was coming outside of it to a separate company. Um, and then trying to build my own life in a new place. So that's something I am still trying to manage. I think because the family I work for, their schedules are forever changing. So that means my schedule is forever changing. And sometimes it's really busy, and other times, it's a lot more slow and maybe more flexible than your normal 9 to 5, which again, I'm very grateful for. So it's like trying to figure out these two extremes has been something I'm trying to still learn and adjust because I'm so used to having this 8 or 9 to 5 mentality, and that outside of that, that's it. Um, and so, kind of restructuring my brain has been the first thing and giving myself a lot of grace throughout it. But it's very stressful in a good way. I think that answers your question, or at
Yes,
least first half.
100%. Yes. So, what are some non-negotiables that you absolutely do when you're in a more leisured schedule in terms of your health and wellness routine that you absolutely still prioritize when it's the stressful season? Like, what gets you through those stressful days in your health and wellness routine?
Definitely my morning routine. I am a morning person. As the day goes on, I'm just done. But like early morning, I could even get up at 3:30 a.m. probably
What?
and start and knock it all out because in my mind, everything else is quiet. Like no one else is up. I don't feel pressure from the outside. I'm just like I can get all these things done and
I love
then
that.
I can move on. Now I don't get up at 3:30 every morning, but if I had to, I could. Um, but in terms of the non-negotiable within that, movement is always the first thing I do. So, for example, we were filming a movie this summer for the whole month of July. And for those of you who may not know, shooting a movie is, while it looks very glamorous, it is very long hours. So, like, your normal day on set is about 12 hours. And then if you're filming far away, then you've got an hour or so drive back and forth. So you're looking at a full 14 hours if you're able to stay on schedule. And so I was getting up really early. Those were the days I was getting up at like 4 a.m. To prioritize, like, hey, this is going to help me center before I go into a very stressful situation. I'm going to move my body because I know I might be sitting in set chairs all day and I'm going to hunch and I'm going to hurt and then I'm going to do it all over again. So movement was definitely a non-negotiable. And then, I would continue on with my morning routine of making sure that I am prioritizing health outside of just movement with also supplements that I need to take and try not to neglect that just because it's busy. Drinking water and getting my electrolytes in and just making sure that I had food for me that I knew that wouldn't hurt my body or kind of cause me more pain or discomfort while being in an uncomfortable place. So those were a few of the non-negotiables, as well as faith is very big for me. So making sure in the mornings or even on the drives that I just had a moment where I was listening to a podcast or um, reading my Bible or a devotional or something like that, where again, I continue to kind of have this like awareness within my heart and soul and mind and body before I kind of jumped into the rest of the day because I knew I already had all that squared away. That was kind of like my foundation. I felt ready for whatever was coming. And you never knew what was coming. I mean, everything and anything happens on set, and it definitely happened to me as well. So, but I felt like I could handle it because I kind of had that foundation to keep me going.
I have a question I want to ask about that. But first, tell us the name of the movie and
Yeah.
when it's coming out. Because I know
So
everybody wants to know at this point. Like,
So we officially have a title and a date. I know the last time I talked to you, it was kind of like up in the air, but
yeah.
it's supposed to premiere December 14th on the Great American Family Channel. So it's kind of like Hallmark Channel or a Lifetime. It is a Christmas movie. Get Him Back for Christmas is the name of it, and it will be on, I think, at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Do you have any cameos in the movie?
I do have two cameos, yes.
Ooh, I can't wait. Okay, we're gonna have like a watch party here at the
Yeah.
studio. We can look for
Yes.
you. Okay, so getting back to what we're talking about.
That was a good
Um,
transition. Get him back.
oh, that's right. That's right. So you have a very stressful job. You're young. You're in a city that is like a New York or an LA, or there's a lot of different people in the entertainment industry. So something that I have been kind of doing in my own health and wellness journey is not drinking as much or not drinking at all. Some people call it the sober curious movement. For me, it just came from, I just started noticing I didn't feel good. Even just one glass of wine with dinner, like I just didn't feel good the next day. And so I've slowly been transitioning out of drinking, and on occasion I will still have a drink here or there, but for the most part, I no longer drink. And it's become very apparent to me how much drinking, like our entire society is based around it. Like after work, you go grab a drink. On a girls' weekend, you go grab a drink. I can only
Hmm.
imagine where you are. It's like everywhere you turn. So I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit in far of like, how long have you been? Well, first off, you do, like, I am right on that, that you don't currently drink, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. How long have you been in that lifestyle of not drinking?
Um, Pretty much forever.
Forever. I love
Pretty
that.
much. Yeah.
And it was
Um,
just something you knew you wanted.
yeah, I think like I mentioned, I've had a lot of chronic inflammation and just a lot of health issues. And I just kind of have always felt like, well, I already feel hungover most of the time. Why would I forcibly make it worse or put it upon myself? Um, that's kind of been the main reason.
Yeah.
Um, Other reasons too, it's just I this might sound crazy, but I am also a very like socially anxious person, and I feel like a majority of us are. Um, the older I'm getting and learning, I don't think anyone truly feels that comfortable going into a room full of strangers. And I know, kind of like our phones, alcohol can kind of be used as a safety measure. I probably still use my phone, but like, you go off in the corner and you look at your phone to try to look like you aren't just standing aimlessly in a room
Right.
by
You have something
yourself.
important to
Yeah.
do on your
And I
phone.
feel like we do the same with alcohol. Like you just always have a cup in your hand, like that feeling. And it is a natural conversation starter. Oh, what are you drinking? That kind of a thing. Um, but I already knew that I was very kind of nervous to go into rooms by myself, and I'm like, I don't want to feel like I have to do that in order to make myself comfortable. I really want to rise above that and, you know, make myself feel uncomfortable, kind of rip off the band-aid in a way and expose myself to that without having kind of a crutch, so to speak. Not saying that I judge anyone for doing that. I totally get it. I'll still get like a glass of water and hold it for the feeling sometimes too, if I really feel like I need something. Um, but the biggest reason was definitely my health. But the secondary reason was also just like I didn't really feel like it was going to give me anything, like it be a source of anything that truly was nourishing. Um, I just felt like no matter the circumstance, it never felt like it was going to, pardon the pun, like pour into me something that was actually, you know, I guess giving or life giving. Um, but it is fascinating to see now, like I feel like the mocktails and the sober curious and all of that is now just becoming trendy, which
Hmm.
is
You
interesting.
you set the trend. You started
Yeah.
it.
And I remember reading an article that Blake Lively did years ago, like when she was very famous and like Gossip Girl. And I remember her saying that she didn't drink. And I just found that so fascinating that she's literally living this Gossip Girl life, literally on stage and off stage. And yet she doesn't drink. And I'm like, well, if she can be the it girl, then I don't have to drink.
I love
um,
that.
but and I also just don't really care for the taste, honestly.
All very
Um,
fair.
and it saves money.
Bonus as well.
So
There's
it just
really
there's so many
so many
pros.
layers. There's some really interesting data coming out about the younger generations not drinking near as much as like my generation and the generations before. And I hope that's something that continues to grow. So there's not this pressure that you have to drink. Again, if somebody wants to drink, more power to you. But I think there's just more awareness around the fact. Somebody said to me the other day that drinking is to their generation, like, the younger generations, what smoking was to us,
Mm,
and watching our parents smoke. And we're like, why would they do that? The younger generations are looking at us and like, why would y'all drink? That's a neurotoxin. Like, you're literally poisoning your body. So it'll be interesting to see how this
I
plays
believe
out.
that.
What is the hardest part for you? Or is there a hard part? Or is it just something you've always done? It's never been awkward or hard. But what is the hardest part for you? Or do you have any tips for people that might want to try to not drink when they're out with the girls or out to dinner?
Definitely the hardest part is, and I'm afraid that I still feel this way, but the hardest part for me is definitely thinking about like what are others thinking of me, which is just my own insecurity. Um, so that is still something I wrestle with. Is like, oh, they're probably thinking she's no fun or she is kind of dulls the party or whatever. Especially living in Nashville. Um, I don't know if everyone knows, but it's basically called Nash Vegas. I mean, you go downtown and there's drinking cabs and buses and every other mode of transportation everywhere that you could imagine. So, um, living in a city like that, I definitely feel that pressure. I feel like more so. Um, Also, when I was in LA, I felt it in certain ways, I guess because there are a lot more what we would consider influential people around. But at the same time, in LA, it was a little different because they are so health conscious out there. So they would understand a little bit more than somewhere here in Nashville. Um, but with that being said, I'm constantly thinking about, again, my health and just all of the pros in my head of why I made this decision for myself. Um, and one thing that's really helped guide me in my decisions along the way is when I was in therapy back in the day. I had a therapist who had these like value cards, and each card had a different value listed on them. And there was like 50 or 75 cards. We spent the whole session putting each one down on the floor, and I had to keep eliminating them until I got down to like my top five values. And they change over time. But she said, you need to make your decisions based off these values and like which one is higher for you. Like if you have two values, for example, that are one and two, you would make your decision based off your highest value. Even though number two is your second highest value, you would still make your decisions off your highest value. Um, and so that's kind of how I kind of help myself discern making decisions in life, especially bigger decisions like moving or lifestyle choices or anything like that. I'm like, does this align with my top values or what I'm seeking or what my body, what my mind, what my soul is seeking in this season of life? And trying to navigate that way because I am very analytical, and so like I will be that person that will list pros and cons all day long and never make a decision. So having that has definitely helped me in making a final decision when it comes to things like that.
I love that. I'm gonna have to try that, the value cards, and see if I can
Yes. They even have
figure out
like
what my
things you
top
can do
priorities are.
online now. Like you can just click the ones online and it'll like flip like a little card. So there's other ways you can do it too.
I think one of my business coaches did an activity like that with me at some point. I'll have to go back and look and see.
It's very
But that's
helpful.
really interesting. Yeah, yeah, I love that. Um, well, I think just from the outside looking in, your life does not look boring. It looks very exciting. I see some Instagram stories here and there. You just went to London to go watch Taylor Swift. I mean, it is very exciting, drink or no drink. So I don't let what other people are thinking get into your head.
I
So
have never done anything as spontaneous as that trip, but it was well worth it.
it looked amazing. It looked absolutely amazing. So kudos to you for being spontaneous and just going. All right,
Yes.
I have two more quick questions.
Okay.
And the first one here, I'm gonna read it here. Hang on, let me pull it up here. I love to end with these questions here. What is one thing that you feel like I kind of might already know your answer. What is one thing that you feel like you are just like nailing in your health and wellness journey? Like, what is one thing that you're just like, I got this down. Like, I am so good at this. Like, this is easy for me.
Man,
Oh my
it's
gosh, I'm going to tell you my
you
answer because
stumped
it's
me.
so
Yeah, tell me
obvious
your
for
answer
me.
first. Okay.
Like, I just feel like you're so grounded. Like, the routines you have with your morning routine and with like knowing what it is that you want. Like, I feel like you just got that down. Like, you are a grounded person. And I just feel like you're nailing that. So I want to know, how do you stay so grounded and what
Oh,
tips can you have for us to be that way?
well,
But
thank you. I'm
it's
glad it looks
interesting you
like
don't
that from
feel
the
that.
outside. No. Do we ever feel like we're good at things?
No, not often.
Well, it helps that I am definitely like a type A person. I have to have some sort of structure in my life. So even like switching to a more flexible job, I've kind of had to set up routines for myself to make me feel better. um, I think now everyone's calling it time blocking, which is really just making a schedule. But I think specifically when it comes to my body, I think trusting myself a little bit more is something that I'm starting to finally feel like I can do. I think for so long I put so much weight into, what others were telling me what was going on with my body when that may not have been the case. I think now we live in a culture where it's so easy just to go get one opinion and then they throw all of this at you without truly taking the time to get to know you and hear your story and what you've tried in the past. Um, and I just kind of put so much weight into that and completely kind of guilty myself for feeling otherwise than what I was being told. But I do feel like now I'm starting to be like, okay, no, I feel like something's off and I need to explore this a little bit more. So I think trusting my body and my mind has definitely been a journey for me, but that is something that I feel like I am getting, I guess, more grounded in as well.
Yes, being your own advocate and getting to know
Yeah, for
yourself.
sure. Yeah.
If there was something that you would like to improve in your like health and wellness routine and journey for 2025, what would it be?
I definitely want to incorporate more weight training in my routine. I kind of started a little bit with a few, like one session a month, back in the summer, but unfortunately, when the movie picked up and things like that, the schedules weren't working. And I am very intimidated to just go into a gym and pick up weights again because I don't want people to look at me. Um, so trying to really commit to either finding another trainer or finding a trainer that I trust online or something, or someone who's been referred to me who has a program that they trust. and maybe even investing in weights for my own home and doing it here until I get more comfortable in going into a gym and doing it. But regardless, weight training is definitely something that I want to incorporate more.
I love that. I think weightlifting is something that everyone should be doing, but specifically women. And I am watching my mother-in-law now she's in her 80s, and she unfortunately broke her back recently due
Mm.
to osteoporosis, and it is truly debilitating and so heartbreaking. And so now I've just become even more of an advocate for lifting weights and doing everything you can to keep your bones and your muscles strong, because I am witnessing the other side of it, and it is not fun. So kudos to you. Definitely keep lifting your weights, or start lifting your weights.
Yes, if you have any recommendations, I will definitely listen to them.
Foundations and the Strong Her program, both of them only use dumbbells, so I can send those to you for sure.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time to join us today and talk to us and tell us what life is like in Tennessee. We have been missing you here. I know the clients at Pilates Cure ask all the time how you're doing and if I've talked to you, so I know for sure they're going to be listening to this interview. We miss you. No one will ever replace you here, but we're so proud of you and just love watching what you're doing. And I truly feel like you're where you're supposed to be. And I just can't wait to see where you keep going and flying off to.
That's so sweet. I miss them so much. It's really special when you find a community like you've built at Pilates Cure. So I'm so grateful to be here and for my time that I was able to experience in Charlotte.
Yes. Well, thank you. And we'll have you on again soon. And we're gonna watch for you. And the
Yes,
movie, what was it? Yeah, get him back. What was it?
get him back for Christmas.
Get him back for Christmas. We're gonna watch for your cameos in that movie. So
Perfect.
thank you, Megan.